if you had that same opportunity and somebody gave you the mic and said, hey, you got 15 minutes, 10 minutes to share one life lesson, what's that lesson that you love to share with people?
Have the difficult conversation.
So true. Most people are avoiding that.
Yes. And I did for quite some time.
Succinct and spot on. Love it. Landry, what about you? You have that mic. They give it to you 15 minutes. What's that one life lesson that you share?
Yeah, I think really, as it goes back to what I've said today, it's understanding personalities will take you so far in every relationship that you'll ever have.
The collaborative entrepreneur.
Listen to this statistic I read recently. 2/3 of current business owners want to retire within the next 2 years, but listen to this. Only 72% of those business owners will leave their business with no exit plan. They're trying to get out. They want to get out in 2 years, but they don't have no strategy for it. They don't have a plan created for it. Consider this statistic. This is a duh moment, right? 100% of business owners will exit their business one day. Duh, right? We all know that. We all know it's true. But the sad reality is this, that only 17% of those business owners will leave successfully and even prosperously on their own terms. And that's really when you're building a business, you're growing that business, you want to be able to exit one day from the business and step away from it on your own terms, having left a legacy behind, or maybe have a good buyout, at least when you're leaving. And so we need to discuss this topic of what they call in the industry transition or succession in business. We need to discuss it far more than we actually do, because only 1/3 of business owners choose to document their successful strategy or their successful succession plan. And what I learned from our guest already, just before we pushed record today, was that like 5% of them actually work that succession plan to make it successful, right? So I want to help. So today we're the Collaborative Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Tracy Currington, and this is the show where we aim to build our businesses through partnerships, and not partnerships where there's a trade-off in exchange of money, where we have, certain percentage points of your business that I own and you own, but we're actually sharing ideas. We're collaborating on thoughts and strategies. And today I have the privilege of introducing to you two men that have just recently gone through a succession. And actually, I want to say it this way. They put the success in succession as far as what they're looking like and their strategy behind it. So I want to explore the journey of their transition, and I know that it'll serve you. So by the way, both of these gentlemen have become trusted advisors in business. I've developed a great friendship, and I think that's probably what I'm most honored by their presence on the podcast today. So let me introduce to you and welcome proudly to the call Blake Wright and Landry Wright. Thank you guys for being on the show with me today.
Thanks so much for the invitation. Appreciate you, Tracy.
Absolutely. Great to have you too, Landry.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having us.
So let's start out with this. So even though I've introduced you by name, obviously the audience won't know who you are. So let's get at least the 25, 30,000 feet in the air overlook about your life through business. Blake, if you would honor us, just share us a little bit about your story coming into business, what you've been involved in your business so far.
Tracy, we started the Durant Taco Casa in 1987. I was 22 years old. I had worked for the gentleman that owns the franchise when I was in high school and got to become friends. And me and another 22-year-old buddy of mine, we opened the restaurant together. And over the years, in 2005, we built another restaurant in Calera, which is about 5 miles away from us. And so we have 2 Taco Casa franchise restaurants. And my friend, Brian, he has 3 Taco Casa restaurants in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Wow.
And so over that time, we've been able, of course, to raise our family and invest in our community through how we've been able to serve our community with tacos and with our resources. And it's been really a lot of fun to really be a part of the community. It's been that's been our favorite part, to be able to be blessed to sell tacos and make a living. So it's been a lot of fun. And during that time, a lot of folks have helped us along the way. And the succession plan that we're interested in visiting about, Landry and I, we've developed, with the help of Tracy and then our friend Braun, an expectation list of how this is supposed to go. And it's really served Landry and I along the way. We're about 5 years into our 10-year succession plan. And so I don't know if most folks have 10 years to get it done, but that's how long we wanted to do it, because we wanted to try to do it right. And we get it right most of the time. And the neat part about it was during this time, I wanted to make sure that I got to be a good business partner, but also wanted to also be a good dad. So and set Landry up for success as we had been set up in the past. So that was our game plan all along. So we've been able to work with some really good folks, including you, Tracy. So thank you for all the help.
Oh, absolutely. I was going back in time to 1986. And if I remember right, is it 1972 Taco Casa came out?
Yes, 1972.
So here they are. They're in business for 14 years. What is the number of stores when you come into it as a 22-year-old man?
Well, Mr. Upshaw had a couple of locations in the Dallas area, and he had sold those to a different franchise. So when we opened in 1987 in Durant, Oklahoma, there was only one other Taco Casa building left, and that was in Gainesville, Texas. And so for the first 3 years, there were only two locations. It was Durant and Gainesville. And now I think there's about 115 all total in the franchise.
So I was just thinking about this, and Landry, I'm going to come to you in just a minute about like your story too. But Blake, your story of, over 3 decades, I mean, transition is a hallmark. I mean, like if you go from 3 stores in 1986 to 2005, and like now we've got 115 stores in 2023, there's probably been a lot of updates or transitions that's taken place. Is that true?
There have been some there's been some challenges. There's been some growth. Some of it easy, some of it more difficult, but it's always been a challenge. And that's the most fun part about the whole thing is we don't have to do the same thing every day. Even though we serve folks tacos, it's always a different challenge. And that's one of the things that keeps it interesting, especially if you're a restaurateur or entrepreneur. Those things are a lot of fun.
Yeah, and like a global pandemic.
There's that. Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
That was a unique challenge to navigate. Yes.
Yep, that sure was. That was a great introduction to our friendship, and our relationship was coming in, and just a couple of months into our relationship in the business, pandemic hits us.
Yes, sir, and that was a challenge.
Yeah, it was. Landry, tell me about a little bit about your, or at least I know a little bit about it already, but the audience, tell us about the your journey up to this point.
Yeah, so of course, born and raised here in Durant, where of course my dad started the number 6 location, and so I was able to grow up here, go to school here, and had the opportunity to go to Oklahoma State and get a business management degree. And really enjoyed that. That was definitely an eye-opening experience to kind of be in a big city to go do some of those things as well. A bigger city than Durant for sure. Still felt like home. So, and it was orange, which is always a plus. But we got to do that, and then had a couple of plans kind of coming out of college towards my junior senior year. We looked at maybe doing a food truck for a little while, and then had the opportunity to sit down with Blake and go over what it would look like for me to work for and with him, and potentially a transition opportunity in a succession plan in place, if that was what I chose to do. So a really awesome opportunity to work with my dad, and definitely a lot of challenges come along with that, with different personalities and how those mesh. But been doing this since 2018. Very start of 2018 was when I came in, and really was in the restaurant almost every day for about the first 3 or 4 years. And that was before I had really applied the things in leadership that I learned. And so now we're able to do some of the, like Blake talked about, the community involvement, able to kind of focus in more on that, and even talk with the local colleges and the high schools and things like that about some opportunities there. So really to be able to be out of the business and working on the business was a big transition for me, and a really fun experience currently. So
I love that. I love how both of you both mentioned the involvement in the community. I know obviously over time, over 3 decades, Blake, you've earned a name and a reputation amongst your community, in your town, and consistency and just always serving in the community. And now, Landry, you get to take that on. I love the way you do that, because I think that's what endears us together, is we believe that our businesses are intended to do something more than just the tacos. But I mean, the tacos is what we sell, but it's not the business that we're in. We're in people business. We're in community involvements and everything. So there's a lot of questions that I want, and I'm trying to resist the urge to. I see all kinds of rabbits, and I'm trying to resist the urge to jumping after them. Blake, what do you think in your 3 decades plus? What was the biggest accomplishment you saw in the business when you were, every day in, day out at the grind?
Wow, that's interesting. Biggest accomplishment, to still be in business. I guess that would be a big accomplishment. We've seen other restaurants come and go, and we try to learn from our experiences and others as well. We always want to do what we think is best for our employees and for our customers, and so we try to take care of our employees, and that's evolved over time. Instead of looking at our employees as a number or just a cog in the machine, now we invest in our employees and help them learn to lead so that they can serve as well. And boy, it makes it a whole lot easier when you've got partners on board with you, as opposed to just folks that show up. So it's been a lot of fun with the transition in the last 7-8 years on how we do business and how we can honor our employees as well as honor our customers. And so I think our biggest accomplishment is to still be in business. So if that's a good answer.
Yeah, well, absolutely. With all, like you said, all the challenges that you've been faced with since 1986, to still be in business, and then to have this transition over to Landry. Hey, Landry, what do you think is the biggest challenge that you've received, especially in the last year plus, in beginning that transition and taking things over?
For me, the biggest thing, and it was really the trust factor of allowing somebody to do the job that I was doing. And there's the rule that I know Maxwell's taught us, and we've gone through a lot, but if it's the rule of delegation, they can do it 80% as well as you, let them, and they'll grow into that. And for a long time, that percentage wasn't good for me. I wanted to be right at 100%, but there was no room for growth in that. So just that realization, and to have the trust, and to know that we share the same values, and to have that as a core part of our business and our organization, and to have leaders who live that out in our restaurants each day, definitely helps that lack of trust that I may have had in the past.
I love it. Love that. So I know people are wondering, and this is not something that I had planned out at all, but just as a father and a son, when you guys are, so there's other business owners out there that maybe they want their families to be a part of it. And not every family member has been meant to work side by side. It takes a certain level of confidence in each other, trust, commitment, those kinds of things. What is for you guys, and I'd love for both you guys to weigh in on it for different perspectives. Describe that relationship, coming to that agreement where, hey, we can work, starts out work for me, and then you can work with me, and so forth. Describe that. Like, how does a family member, because I know that there's challenges involved in that. Describe your wins and learns along the way.
That's pretty interesting. It's a challenge for sure. I've known Landry most of his life, and so so I knew his mindset and his work ethic going in, and so early on he began to ask about being in the restaurant business, and I encouraged him to do anything other than be in the restaurant business because I've known the history of how we've done things, and it's not always easy, but it is a challenge at times, and it's often fun. So once he decided he wanted to do that, and that's the way we wanted to go, we shifted gears to bring folks in to help us make that happen, because we knew that we didn't think exactly alike, and our expectations weren't defined as of yet. And so that was the first thing we needed to do, was clarify what both people in the partnership expected as we move forward. And so that was probably the biggest challenge, was to put into words onto paper so that we could discuss our expectations. And so that each side would have an understanding about how we wanted to move forward. And that was challenging. It was looking back on it, it was more fun looking back now than it was during the moment, because it was such a difficult task. But to have you help us, to have our friend Braun alongside us, helping us keep those main things in focus, and to still be able to honor each other at the end of the day as a father and son. And that was our main goal, was to do this and still keep our family intact. So
yeah, I love that.
That was the biggest challenge, but also the biggest reward.
Yeah, all things being equal, I'd rather have a relationship with my son than my son as a business partner.
That's exactly where we started. Yes.
Yeah. What do you think? Your perspective, Landry. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that Blake hit it right on the head as far as the clear expectations, and we had to have help defining what expectations were for each other and for our business. The biggest thing that helped me grow through that was understanding personalities. Yeah, and like you mentioned earlier, we don't think the same. We don't think the same often, but we do have similar tendencies, but we have different personalities that back those tendencies. And so we went through DISC assessment, which was probably and still probably one of the most beneficial things that I have that I've gone through course wise. And then in the last 2 years or so, we were able to do the Working Genius, and that was a very interesting addition to understand my Working Genius versus Blake's Working Genius, and to see how those meshed and or didn't mesh. So the reflection on that was even funnier, I think, than the results itself. But yeah, clear expectations, having the help of good leaders who see it from the outside in and don't look at it just from the the middle of the road kind of thing, where you and Braun both came in and helped tremendously with those conversations, and to have somebody there who could be the person to kind of initiate that conversation, and it allowed us to continue to do it with respect and still go home and hang out with Dad after that. And so that was definitely the biggest thing. But for me, personality, like understanding personalities, and if you guys have been through DISC, of course, I know that the D personality, one of the biggest things I learned was that the passion comes from it can appear as like a challenge or a threat. And early on, that was when there was a task asked of me, whatever that looked like. But for me to finally understand that he was working in his realm, and that was truly passion, and it wasn't directed as like hatred or mad or anything at me, then I could get through that myself and understand how big and important that was, what he was saying, outside of just kind of eliminate something in my head and just move forward. So there was a lot of fun conversations around that specifically, and then around the respect levels and things along those lines. But personalities was the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, love that. So the one thing I've noticed about both of you guys just over the years of just getting to know you is Landry, and I think I probably recognized this first from you, was that like in the same frame that you mentioned Dad, you also mentioned Blake. And so is that something that you guys, like just last time, when we heard from him, he said Landry, and then he's, my son. So did you guys actually have to have the conversation about, hey, listen, business is business. I'm Blake, you're Landry, and then when we're done with business, hey, I'm dad and your son. Did that just fall in that place like that? Did you guys actually have to have that conversation? I'm really, really curious about that.
Yeah, I don't ever remember specifically a conversation had about it, but I think there was, for me personally, there was, we've got another gentleman in our office with us, and he always gives me a hard time because he says, "That's your dad, it's not Blake." And so I always tell him, I said, when it's business, it's Blake. When we're at home, it's dad. And so I think early on we made it clear of, especially the expectations for those two relationships. And so I think just that alone was in my head. Okay, we're at work, we're dealing with Blake. We're at home, we're dealing with dad. And so that was that helped me differentiate in my own head when I was either in the office or in the restaurant, having those conversations as well. So I don't think there was ever a specific conversation we had though that went through that.
So you mentioned the two different relationships, one as, boss or partner, and then one as your father. And it justified having two separate titles or two separate names for those. What about you, Blake? Is there anything that like in that? I mean, is there, I don't know, as a dad, having my son call me Tracy, and like that would take me some getting used to, I think, probably an original. And I don't, this is not my notes, guys. I just thinking, like, I've always wanted to ask you guys that because I did the same thing for my father. And it's easy for my dad to call me Tracy, but it was difficult for me to call him, pastor or, instead of dad all the time. But Blake, weigh in on that for us.
That's interesting. It's an interesting discussion, Tracy. I've never thought too much about it. I've always defaulted to however Landry wanted to refer to me in whatever situation we were in. And so whatever he's comfortable with, I was good with. It is interesting, though, to go back one step and listen to Landry speak about personalities. I would like to touch on that as well. We both seem to be currently now, 5 years in, the lines are less direct or strict than I think maybe they were when we first started, 4 or 5 years ago. And I think part of that is what Landry touched on was the personality part, is that I used to want people to think like me because I thought I was right. And then I realized that other people have an opinion as well. So when I would talk, I knew what I wanted to say, but then people wouldn't hear me because I wouldn't speak to their personality or their understanding. And so when I learned different personalities and learned how to speak the English language in a way that other folks could understand, then it really created a lot of value for them and for me as well, because our communication increased.
That's a great thought. I hope those watching this right now, I hope if you didn't get that, you need to go back and rewind that back to when Landry brought that up. He mentioned DISC assessment, working genius, and the value of understanding yourself, understanding of the person, and then that being with that willingness to adapt to that person. That's a struggle, especially if you're, of the opinion that, hey, I'm right.
That was always a big struggle for me.
So I know people are wondering, and I'd love to go deeper on the father son, because working with family has such a different dynamic and dichotomy that we could go into. But I really want to get into this exit planning, the exit time. Let's start there, Blake. How do you know? How did you know? Okay, it's time to begin the strategy, the exit, the process. How do you know when it's time as a business owner? How do you know that?
Well, 30 years is a long time to do anything. And I think that over time, my wife had also noticed over the years, she said, you've probably been burnt out 4 or 5 times, and then you'll take a week or 2 and then you'll refocus and go back after it. But she said this last time, I could tell you were checking out. You were not spending as much time in the restaurant, not doing the things that I know that need to be done. And so I could tell it was at the end of my season just for me. And I can't say, hey, 30 years is the magic number, but at 25, 28 years in, I was considering selling my ownership of the restaurants. And then Landry, when he decided that he thought that was what he wanted to pursue, I wanted to make sure that's what he wanted to do before we started with any kind of succession planning. So for a year, he came and managed one of the restaurants straight up, just like a person that we would hire and put in place would do as a manager. And so that was a learning curve for him, a learning curve for me, and for us to assess and evaluate one another and see if we wanted to be in business together for the next 5 to 10 years. The 10-year succession plan was my idea, so that it would give Landry an opportunity to grow into the role that I knew that he could fill. But it would also give me a time to cycle out of the business, I guess you'd say, and still help if needed, but not be overbearing. And so that was really my goal early on. That was my idea. And it took a while for Landry and I to both begin to speak the same language. And we always had similar values. Obviously, we live in the same household. And I don't know that I could have picked anyone that would have done a better job of continuing to share the values that we have for our restaurant. Landry has an older brother he's a chemical engineer by education, and he and his brother would have done things differently. And Holden thinks a little more D-minded like me, and so it would have been easy for Holden and I to communicate, but difficult for us to move forward because neither one of us would move towards the middle. So it's been a really joy working with Landry and seeing him mature into the position that he's taken now, and he shoulders most of the responsibility for what the taco business does in the Durant and Calera locations, and I'm honored that he's doing it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Landry, so Blake talks about, like 25 to 28 years into it, it's like, man, I'm starting to feel it. I'm starting to check out, and I need a replacement, or I'm going to sell this. When did you know that, like, stepping towards this, just running the taco stand yourself as the GM, but moving into that role of owning and operating the two locations? When was it for you that you knew that?
I'm trying to think of a specific time. There was a lot of, won't say battles, but there was a lot of conversations that we had around what this looked like. And there was a couple of attempts that I had to be the general manager over both locations. And expectations weren't met on either side, truly. We didn't have a clear, defined expectations of what we want out of that position. And so the two times that I attempted to try it, it didn't work out. And for either of us, I wasn't enjoying what I was doing, and we weren't getting the results we needed to get. So I went back and started operating the Durant store again, like I knew how to, because that was where I was comfortable and familiar with. And over that time, it was kind of funny, without having the expectations on it, I just kind of began to work freely. And with the leadership growth and the understanding of how the business works, with those things in mind, I kind of worked myself out of that job and into the general manager position that we didn't even really have planned out for anything or anybody. And so it was humorous to there, and then working through that, got to begin to learn some of the ownership side of things and what that looked like to do to get some invoices and do different things that way, write checks and pay bills and payroll and all those things like that I was able to do. That I learned pretty quickly because I enjoy the number side of things quite a bit. But really it was working myself out of a store manager and not really knowing what the next step was, but kind of creating that spot for myself as the general manager for both locations. Wow. So it was just kind of humorous how it worked out, and the timing of it, how it worked, because I tried it 2 times before that and failed pretty miserably. So learned a lot during those times.
Yeah.
But yeah, and working myself out of that position into something that I enjoy doing each and every day. It was hard to do because I enjoyed being in the business. Working at, making tacos every day. I really enjoyed that. So I had to find something that I did enjoy to come do to fill that void of fun for myself as well. And that was where that freedom to kind of create what I did was fantastic. So.
That's awesome. And by the way, there may be somebody watching it this episode right now that's like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, was there a shift? There was a shift. Was it a shift because the timing was now right, or the awareness was there? And you talked about that shift of like, hey, I just really enjoyed being in the business, and I enjoyed doing what a GM does. And then having to find that, like, oh, but I can enjoy this role too because it has these things in it. How did that shift take place?
Yeah, so there was a couple of things. The Lord works in ways that some of us may not understand. And so one of those things, like you said, was awareness. That was a big thing. It's for me to be aware of what I could do and having that confidence and ability to know that I can do these things, and I can run a restaurant and operate and own a restaurant. And then I can go try to do that with a second one. And so there was some confidence there. The biggest thing, we hired the right people.
Yeah.
So our two managers at both locations are phenomenal. They're fantastic. And without them, we would be in a different spot than we are today. But I had my daughter. My wife had my daughter about in June of 22. So it was that time where the shift really happened. Wow. And where I was forced to trust because as much as we love business, as much as we love making tacos, our family comes first. And so the needs of my wife and my daughter for that first month, I mean, and even still through today, but that was a significant change in my life that I didn't necessarily know what happened, but it did. Well, I knew the baby was coming. There was be clear there, but the amount of responsibility that just comes with that, I didn't know to the extent of what that would look like. So part of that was timing and telling me, hey, go take care of your family. And so I was able to do that and still see how the business operates. So then to be able to work with the leaders at both locations and just be specific with them so they could work top down was truly a good learn and been a lot of fun.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Congratulations on your daughter's birth.
Thank you.
And the shift that you made in your life. So Blake, what is there any I don't know, regret is the right word, anything that you would have done differently through the transition, from looking at it right now and seeing where it's at today, and then coming back to the first time where we had this, I know that I need to move forward. I don't know the sell or succession. What would you do differently or advise somebody to reconsider if they're thinking about doing that?
That's a decision that each person will have to make if they want to sell their business or to create a succession plan for their family. For us, with Landry being interested, of course, I wanted him to carry on what we'd built in Durant, in Calera. And early on, I'll share this with you. Early on in the succession, the first couple of years, I worked in the restaurant. I'll give you some overall perspective. I worked in the restaurant in Durant from 1987 through 2005. Wow. In 2005, we opened another restaurant just down the road on the highway, and I worked there for the next 3 years. So about 21, 22 years every day in the restaurant. Wow. And then when Landry's in the restaurant each and every day, I would get frustrated because I wanted him to already know what I knew at 25 years in. And Braun would, he would say, okay, now how long did it take you to learn this? And I said, 20 years. He said, you're asking him to do it in a year.
Yeah.
Be patient. He's learning. Mm-hmm. And so that was a perspective that I needed someone to speak to me when I was trying to pour all the fire hose of information on Landry's head. Was, hey, give him a minute to take a breath. Let him grow into this. Give him some information and then let him digest it. So that was one of the things that I needed, was a perspective from a friend that I trusted to help me go through that first few years of what I expected and in what Landry would, in the end, be capable of doing all of it. I just had to give him a moment to grasp the whole thing, because it was a perspective thing for me. I knew he could, and I wanted him to. I wanted him to take ownership of it, and there was honestly, I think, about a week, somewhere in the 2 or 3 year time frame, when I was thinking, I don't know, maybe I don't know, and then the next week, okay, he gets it. Boom, just like that. There was never just a transition. It was okay, maybe, and then okay, he got it. So when he got it, all over. We're good.
Yeah. So the shift when you knew, like when that happened, when you know, like he's got it, describe that feeling, because there's some business owner right now who's probably thinking the same thing, like, man, I don't want it to go under, just because because I took my hands off the steering wheel, and I hope it's going to be okay, but now he gets it. What's that feeling? I mean, like, because there's somebody that's watching this right now or listening to this, and they're like, I want to know what that feels like. Like, what can I expect?
There's a relief for me that said, awesome. He owns it now. It's not that he gets it. He always gets it. But there was a time when that time happened, I knew that he owned it. And that's what I wanted. He would always come in and ask, okay, what can I do next? I've got this part done. I'm doing this admin stuff. You want me to do this? What about this over here? How do you want me to do this? And it was always specific tasks. And then one day he came in, he goes, hey, I got this. And he took care of this, and this. And I went, okay, he's got it. So when that happened, when that day happened, and I couldn't tell you exactly the date, but I can tell you the date that I knew was, he said, I got this. And I don't even think he knows whenever he came in and said that, but it went from, hey, what do I need to do next, to, hey, I got this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take care of that. I got this other deal I'm working on. And I said, okay. And that's when I knew that he had it.
He owns it. Love it.
He owns it. Yes.
Landry, there's got to be a feeling for you, like, because, I mean, here's your dad, the business owner, when he knows, he owns it. That's awesome. And I do remember, I know that you guys didn't bring this up, but I do remember it. Like, I got to go away and not think about, I didn't even think that I owned a taco stand for an entire week. It didn't even register. It didn't even occur to me. And like, so I know that Landry, that we talked about this a little bit. Please describe that feeling of knowing that you've met that, I don't know, that unknown, unseen, unheard expectation that he owns it now. What did that feel like for you?
Yeah, and there was, like I said, I don't think there was a specific day that I can recall, but there was a shift in mindset, and it really, I couldn't tell you what the reasoning behind it was. I knew I had people back in my corner that were willing to help me even whenever I messed up, and allow me to mess up. The failing forward motto, right? That's And so the support behind me, and also the 36 years of doing business. I'm not gonna be the reason it messes up today. There's that on me as well. There's a legacy that's been created and built, and I would love to continue to pursue that. And so there was I don't even say it was a shift in mindset or anything like that, but it kind of was into the regards of just go do it. If it's in Blake's hands, take it out. And there was that mindset for me because of all the things and opportunities, and of course 27 years of growing up in it, 28 years now, but growing up in it, there were opportunities created so much for me. In not that I ever felt like I ever owed my dad anything, but I owed the owner of the business something because he'd allowed me the opportunity to do the things that he'd done for that long. And so there was that mindset as well that said, I want to take care of this, because he in this business is taking care of me.
Hmm.
And so the goal has been to allow my dad to retire too, and still just write him a check and move on. That's been the goal. I want him to feel comfortable enough to say, yeah, I'm good to go do this, or I'm good to go do that now. So there was a change in mindset for me in regards to that, of truly understanding what that meant for me.
Yeah.
And to carry on that legacy and that and just to push that forward and to continue to help people in the community that we're in.
Yeah. Blake, I can hear the ownership in Landry's voice. Just, when he's talking about like, hey, he's worked hard for this for 30 years. He's not going to go down on my watch. I'm going to take ownership for this. It's awesome. Okay. So I have 3 questions left. I want to give these to Landry to Blake. And then I want both you guys to weigh in on this last question, because it'll add so much value to people. So Blake, what would be a benefit that you don't realize that you receive as a business owner, running that business for 30 years, getting to step away from it and not do the day? I mean, like 25 years of in the store every day, and you guys are a 7-day-a-week business, except through COVID, just for a little bit of time, you had a little parole, but outside of that, I mean, every day. What is something that you probably wouldn't read this in a book? Maybe you didn't even know that you would have that emotion, that feeling, or that benefit. What would that be? I mean, because I'm on this side of retirement. I'm on this side of, I'm still in the grind. I'm still in the hustle. I'm still moving. And like, what is that benefit that, I never even thought that I would have this, and I have this now? What is that?
Oh, it's a great feeling to know that your life's work as a restaurant is being done better today than it ever has been.
I love it. Yeah, that's good. I got to quote that one. That's awesome. Okay, so the next question.
My friend Braun actually said one day, he said, when we were talking about the succession planning, he said, there's going to come a time when Landry's going to do this better than you, and you're going to have to let him.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. That's a great statement. That sounds like Braun.
It does sound like Braun.
What's next for you, Blake? Now that, so you have you got that breathing room, and it just probably gets, I'm assuming it gets better and better every week that goes by. What's the next thing for you as an entrepreneur? Does that just go away because you stepped away from a 30-year-long stretch? Where's Mike taking you now?
Yeah, it's very interesting that you asked that question, because I've always got something going. We've remodeled a few houses and sold or put them into a lease business over the years. I have some commercial properties that I've been able to purchase. I currently am working on, and by the first of the year, I'll be in the used car business, because I really enjoy cars. And so I'm going to see if trading cars might not be a lot of fun, and then continue to look for other opportunities to do things as far as serving in the community and hanging out with good people, and continuing to grow in my education and being around if Landry has any questions about tacos. So.
Love it. Well, so guys, you heard it here's an entrepreneur at 22 years old, steps into this role, steps into this business. He's in it for a couple of years, buys another one, runs that for a little bit, takes this transition. And through all that time, I only know a little bit of the background story, having 2 restaurants, but still doing things on the side, always having something going on, whether it's buying the next Jeep or whatever it might be. But now going into the used car business, I love it. I get from that, Blake, that like once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. Always having something going on.
Oh, that's just the fun part of it. That's just having something to do to keep me busy. My wife likes to keep me busy, so she said, "Sure, go for it."
Understood. Okay, so this last question I'd love to hear from both of you guys, because and thank you again for being on this program today. But the big life lesson, if somebody were to give you the first time I ever met, by the way, you guys watching this, first time I ever met Blake, he was actually speaking to about, if I remember right, the audience was about 260 people, and you were being interviewed by our mentor, and you got to speak. That's the first time I ever got connected with you. And so if you had that same opportunity and somebody gave you the mic and said, hey, you got 15 minutes, 10 minutes to share one life lesson, what's that lesson that you love to share with people?
Have the difficult conversation.
So true. Most people are avoiding that.
Yes. And I did for quite some time.
Love it. Succinct and spot on. Love it. Landry, what about you? You have that mic. They give it to you 15 minutes. What's that one life lesson that you share?
Yeah, I think really, as it goes back to what I've said today, it's understanding personalities will take you so far in every relationship that you'll ever have. And then the rest of the time I had would be talking about priorities. Make the main thing the main thing.
Love that. That's a good title. Personalities and priorities.
Personalities and priorities. There you go.
That's great. Love it. Okay, so where can Blake? Do you have the lot up and running? Is it? I mean, can we advertise that yet?
Oh no, we're working on it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm only going to have 5 or 6 cars at a time. So there's, if anyone's interested, I'm going to have a lot of fun doing it. But yeah, I don't know there'll be any money made. It'll just be a lot of fun.
Well, is there if somebody wanted to connect with you, is it Facebook? Are you on Facebook? Are you?
Yeah, it's on. I'm on Facebook. Yeah.
Okay, so Blake Wright on Facebook, you guys, and then Landry is the best way to connect with you through the Taco Casa stores.
We've got the Taco Casa stores. They're both on Facebook, and I'm personally on Facebook as well. So anyway, I need to be connected there. Just shoot us a message.
And by the way, guys, go through Taco Casa Calera, Taco Casa Durant. I love the Taco Casa model, and this is just like my little plug for Taco Casa. There's no money that Taco Casa or Mr. Upshaw gives me for doing this, but I love Taco Casa. I love it because it's fresh. It's fresh, and you wouldn't believe it. I mean, like the beans come in a box, like they just come from the ground, and that's how they make. I mean, they pressure cook their beans. Their meat doesn't come in a frozen bag that you put in the steam table for a little bit of time and hope it gets up to temperature. They actually comes in a big long, log, and their cheese is the finest cheese that you can buy. And just, I love the model. I love the food. You got to go. If you're not a Taco Casa lover and you're not in this area, please come to this area. When you're in this area, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you got to visit a Taco Casa. It's great stuff. I love the business model. It's been my pleasure to get to serve Landry and Blake over these last couple of years. Okay, so did I forget anything? Before I sign off, is there anything else you'd like to add to the call today? Any value you'd like to add, Landry?
I think we covered a lot of it. So I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to be here.
Excellent. Blake?
Tracy, thanks a lot. Sure appreciate you. We've really enjoyed our journey along this knowledge and growth pattern, and thank you for facilitating that in us and the people that we serve. So we're really grateful. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys. We're in the spirit of giving thanks. We just come out of Thanksgiving. We're going into the Christmas. We're in the spirit of generosity. I want to thank you, our viewer, for viewing us today on this call and for following TMC Coaching and the Collaborative Entrepreneur. You can learn more about me and what I do at tmccoaching.org. If you'd like to connect with me, hit me up on email, tracy@tmccoaching.org. I'd love to find out what you got going on and see how I might be able to serve you. So until next time, everyone, surround yourself with great people like Blake and Landry who can elevate your thinking and inspire you to dig deep and do more for your community. We'll talk to you next time.
On behalf of Tracy, thank you for watching this episode of the Collaborative Entrepreneur Podcast. Be sure to like this video and turn on notifications for future episodes coming out every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you want to learn more about Tracy and the work that he does, you can find us at 180turnarounds.com Also on all social media platforms under 180 Turnarounds. If you want to get in touch with Tracy about being on the Collaborative Entrepreneur podcast, you can do so by emailing us at tracy@tmccoaching.org. Let us know the industry that you're in, as well as some wins and learns that you've had along the way. So until next time, let's win together.